Welcome into week 2, folks. All week 1 did was left us hungry for more. Even though we had 5 full days in a row of college football, we had 4 days off there. So we are ready to get into week 2 of my top 7 in the college football season. There's not a lot of shakeup in the polls this week, keeping the undefeated champions at number 1. The Tide rolls into number 2 this week, up from 4 last week. Michigan gets the first bump of the week, going from 1 to 3. And the mover, the money maker, Florida State, up 2 from 6 to 4 after that embarrassing loss that they handed to the Bayou Tigers. 5 through 7. USC holds pat at number 5, while Ohio State takes a fall from 3 to 6. And Penn State climbs out of my first 2 out into the number 7 spot. And this week, my first 2 out will be Texas and Notre Dame. Texas, after Saturday, could make a lot of noise and climb up into this top 7. And Notre Dame, after 2 huge wins, week 0 against Navy, and then last week's impressive 550-plus yard performance, puts them in there as my second team for the first 2 out. Now on to this week's preview. Number 1, the Dogs are taking on Ball State. Georgia is looking for another big win, well, at least on the scoreboard anyhow. I want to see what that offense does and how they respond to coming out so slow last week. With the possible return of Ladd McConkey at receiver, I think there'll be a faster start this week, on the way to at least a 40-point victory between the hedges. Last week, we had a marquee matchup between Florida State and LSU. This week, it's the main course. Alabama plays host to the Texas Longhorns this week. Last week, Texas struggled on the offensive line against Rice. Quinn Ewers was hit, pressured, and sacked all game. You could say it was kind of a short passing night for him, as well as he missed 6 25-plus yard throws down the field. The third quarter last week looked really good for the Longhorns. They had 3 touchdowns, but there's no way they can afford to put another 0 on the scoreboard and expect to come away with a win in the fourth quarter this week. I expect them to be much cleaner in the trenches, which will allow those good receivers the opportunity to get downfield and possibly make some big plays. Alabama played mid-season form from start to finish. It was such a complete game for them last week. I think that they're going to build off of that and expect a similar kind of game plan. They'll take some pressure off of Milroe with the run game and allow that play action to open up some passes down the field. With that said, though, Texas is not a Middle Tennessee State, and Alabama expects to win. They have to execute the game plan. Milroe has to make the right reads, much like he did last week, and the Alabama secondary has to be in the game the entire time. They're going to rely on that pass rush to support the back end on defense. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go Bama by 10. Before I go on any further, I have to say this. I didn't say it last week, but I got to get to it this week. I'm super excited to hear that CBS music playing when there's a Big Ten game on TV and not the SEC. Last week it was Ohio State. This week it's Michigan. Michigan fans, I'm tired of hearing we've done this without our coach. That talk is getting old. Come on, it's a team suspension. And it's for 3 games. For 3 games. He's there for every practice and every meeting throughout the week. He's just not on the sidelines on Saturday. But the opponent across the field on those 3 Saturdays are inferior in every way to that Michigan roster. I want to see a performance out of you guys this week that's going to give me something to talk about from start to finish on Monday. I have a lot of friends, even some family members that are Michigan fans, and all I ever hear out of them is, why do you hate our team so much? And really, I don't hate your team. I hate your blindness towards your team. It's It's a good team. It's a great team in the Big Ten, but they continue consistently over the last 6 years to fail to shine when the lights are the brightest. Moving on. At number 4 is Florida State. And man, did they look good on Sunday night against Florida State. And they were definitely week 1 winners, making their way from 6 in my poll to number 4. This week, they host the Golden Eagles from Southern Miss. I don't expect the starters to play much, even if they play into the second half of the game, allowing those second and third string guys to get some game time reps prior to the start of ACC play. But look out, Noles defense. The running back on the other side of the field is Frank Gore Jr., and he is 80 yards away from reaching the 3K career total rushing mark. But also remember this, though, that Florida State defense allowed only 8 total yards last week in the second half. If Gore wants to reach that mark, he's going to have to work for it this week. I expect Florida State to get the win. I'm just not sure about that 30.5-point line because I don't expect the starters to stay long, but they will come away with a victory. Number 5 is USC. Man, I'd love to watch these guys play live, but I'm an old man, and 10:30 is way beyond my bedtime, especially since my daughter is serving as an acolyte at tomorrow morning's 8:30 service. By the way, it's her first time, and yeah, that's a selfless dad plug there, a proud dad plug at that. But back to your regularly scheduled program. Saturday will be the 103rd meeting between the men of Troy and Stanford. Thanks to a realignment, though, this could be the last time we see this matchup, the last time we see this rivalry take place. But don't get me started on realignment because, man, I wish we could put that behind us. USC has scored 122 points and only given up 42 in 2 games. But now it's time for them to play some Pac-12 ball. Week 1, the Cardinals went west, if you can imagine that, playing in Hawaii. Even with no run game, well, that's not completely true because the Rainbow Warriors did run the ball 16 times for a total of -5 yards. Yet somehow they threw for over 355 yards and 3 scores. USC is averaging 397 in the air and 187 yards on the ground. I expect them to cover that 30-point spread and then some. At 6 this week is Ohio State. There is a 99% chance, according to ESPN, that Ohio State gets this win. Well, I don't expect anything less against Youngstown. Maybe if this was a week 1 matchup, we would have seen more firepower coming out of that offense from Ohio State. So hopefully this week we can see the scoreboard light up a little bit because OU played good, but not good enough. Kind of like Kyle McCord did last week. Not too awful. 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, but also not too good. The Buckeyes didn't take the top off of that IU defense, and I expect that to happen this weekend against Youngstown. The offense will take a lot of chances downfield against what should be an inferior defense. I expect the Buckeye D to keep a 0 on the board till maybe late in the fourth quarter when you're going to see some garbage time scoring against second or third string defense. The newcomers this week into the top 7 is Penn State. They're led by their quarterback, Drew Aller, who got a lot of playing time last week. He got a lot of playing time last year, but last week was just his first start, and he looked really good. He made a lot of throws to his second and third reads, which bodes well for his development. Delaware should be nothing more than a tune-up for the Nittany Lions before Big Ten play begins for them next week. Well, that wraps up my Week 2 preview of what I expect from my top 7 teams. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me here on YouTube, as well as the other social media channels. Leave a comment down below on your thoughts on this weekend's games. Maybe give me some score predictions, and we'll see who's right come Monday or Tuesday of next week. But until then, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.